Yeah, thank you, and kia ora koutou. Thank you, everyone, for your time joining us today. I'm Haojin. I am one of the co-coordinators, and I'm based in Christchurch, and I work for Horonui District Council, if you know, one of the smaller North Canterbury councils down in the South Island. So, as part of what we're doing today, so sort of co-hosting, I will open the session up with a karakia. Uh, so this one is very well known, so join in if you like on your end. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, tihei, Māori ora. And with that, I think, should I pass it back to Bridget or straight to Claire?
Pass it back to me. Thank you so much,
Right,
Haojin. It was great. I just struggled saying Aotearoa, so yes, very impressed. Thank you. So yeah, we'll get stuck into the session. I'll just do a quick introduction and then I'll hand over to Claire. So yes, I'd like to introduce Claire Doherty, who works at Bush Heritage as well. Claire's the National Conservation Planning Manager with Bush Heritage, has around 15 years implementing the conservation standards, and so a wealth of knowledge working with teams across the country. And Claire also oversees our 93 Miradi projects. So Claire, I'll hand over to you if you'd like to expand on that introduction and we'll get started. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Bridget. That's great. Yes, that's right. I'm the National Planning Manager for Bush Heritage. Thanks, Haojin, too. That was beautiful, that prayer. I'm just going to, what I might just do first is just make sure I can share my screen. So, yeah, we've been working at Bush Heritage implementing the conservation standards, or a variation of it that we call the conservation management process, since around about 2009, 2010, and using Miradi from about 2010, 2011. I can't pinpoint the exact dates, but we've been using it for a very long time. So I'll go through, let me just share. Hang on a second. Thanks everyone too for joining. Look forward to the Q&A session at the end. All right, can everybody see that? Thumbs up, great. Okay, so today we're going to look at operationalising the conservation standards. I'm not going to go into the full breadth of what it takes to operationalise the standards because we'll be here all day. I'll just be focusing on some few things and exploring some lessons learned from our experience as a large conservation organisation adapting the conservation standards, and Miradi as a key adaptive management software tool. I also would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians, the places that we all live and work and play. I'm currently sitting on Wurundjeri country in Melbourne. I just want to recognise and respect the enduring relationships that Aboriginal people across Australia have with their lands and waters, and pay my respects for elders past and present. Let me just move that bar, it's getting in the way of what I can see. So this session we're going to cover, hopefully, if I don't succeed, let me know at the end. And there's always conversations that can happen after these sessions. This is just a starting point. So there's three things I hope you take away for today. How we use the conservation standards and Miradi to build work plans that people actually use. How we connect those plans to budgets and organisational planning cycles. And just the last part of that will be some practical lessons on keeping it alive and staying adaptive. This is where my computer melts down. Just for anybody that doesn't know Bush Heritage, I won't go into too much detail, but we're a large not-for-profit national conservation organisation, and we protect ecosystems and wildlife across Australia. We implement science and research and work with Aboriginal partners across Australia to deliver landscape scale impact. We have a deep respect for Aboriginal people and their knowledge and experience, and listening and learning from them is a really important part of how we work. And also working with others. We can't do this ourselves, so it's about partnerships and community and working with all of the people that we need to make sure that for our vision is healthy country protected forever. This is just a snapshot of our national strategy on a page. So there's 3 key areas: reserves, Aboriginal partnerships and agricultural partnerships. And the way that we deliver that is through priority landscape. So we can't work everywhere. So the blobs on this map is different landscapes across Australia. We have 19 of them. And this is just a way of further prioritising those special places that we want to work to protect those the ecosystems and the species that we're all working to protect and restore the landscapes. So just looking at our reserves and partnerships within those big blobs, those priority landscapes, the green ones are our bush heritage reserves. We've got some agricultural partnerships up in the north and a couple of smaller ones down in the south. I just said the green one, yeah. And the blue ones are the kind of orange. Would you say that's orange colour? That's the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander partnerships. So they're scattered across Australia as well. We've got some big ones up in the north there, Kimberley and Northern Territory and up in the Cape. And then, of course, regional and local partnerships. So it's really about working all together to try and leverage that impact that we're looking for. So before I haven't put up the conservation standards wheel. I'm making an assumption here that everybody knows there's 5 steps because you're here. I'm happy to bring it up later if we want to go through that. But so before we came across the standards, we were using we're all using a planning process, trying to be adaptive. But before we took on the conservation standards, plans were living in people's heads, so in Word documents and Excel spreadsheets. So, and they were really hard to update. So the kind of, there's a plan that's sitting on a shelf gathering dust. When new staff would come on board, they bring their own knowledge. If we haven't got those standard kind of plans and procedures and policies and things, and they reinvent the wheel. And then the institutional knowledge leaves with that staff member that departs from bush heritage, and that new person comes on board. Funders and supporters are always, starting to ask harder questions. They want to see actual impact, evidence of impact, not just the outcomes, the activities that we were doing. We were sometimes reactive to threats rather than being more strategic about what the priorities were and how we could, really prioritise that funding to the most important things that we needed to work on, given that our funding was, it's always limited in the conservation space. Monitoring happened, but results were really fed back into changing what we did, and also from an organisational perspective, being able to learn from project-based conservation to the, extending it across to programs and across Australia. What changed when we adopted conservation standards? So it gave us a shared language and a repeatable process. I mean, you guys know all this, but I think it's really important just to kind of rest on these dot points here. Miradi gives us the infrastructure to make it stick. So not everything sits in Word documents and Excel spreadsheets now. We've got live plans that we update on a regular basis. So that we've got this common framework now across all of our reserves and partnerships and conservation projects. And that's regardless of who's managing that. So work plans that connect directly to the operational budgets within our business cycles. So we've got quarterly business cycles, so they're updating plans within those cycles, reforecasting budgets, progress reporting, that kind of thing. We've got monitoring that feeds back into adaptive management, so not just sitting in reports. There's clearer conversations with funders and our supporters about what we're actually doing and why we're doing it, so we can demonstrate some of the impact that we're having instead of just talking. It's important to be able to talk about what we're doing, but being able to show that it is actually contributing with some evidence base to some of the things that we had identified that we wanted to do in the first place. And then, of course, we've got that organisational memory that survives staff turnover. So that all sounds like we're living in this utopian, wonderful working space. Not all of these things are working 100%. I just want to stress that. This is still a work in progress, but we're moving closer towards being able to tick off a lot of these things. So still working on it all. How it all fits together. So we've got our impact reporting and our 2030 strategy. That feeds into the priority landscape plans, and we have reserve plans and partnership plans. And then we're able to connect all these things together with classifications, coding, taxonomies, and then able to connect the different systems that speak to each other. So we've got Miradi as our adaptive management software where we develop our plans and implement and track those plans. We have the ArcGIS database, which is a spatial representation of what's in Miradi. That's where we store all of our monitoring data, measures feedback into Miradi once the data's been analysed. And you've got the increasing detail and being able to kind of share different messages depending on where we're working within the different scales across the organisation. So the data comes from lots of different places. So in Miradi, we've got we've built the plan. We've got our indicators and our goals and our objectives are all defined within the system. Go out and do the work. We gather the data, we analyse the data, and then we feed those measures back into our plans. Then those measures, we use different tools. I'm sure you've all got lots of experience on all the different tools. I'd love to have a webinar down the track where we share some of the technologies and tools that we're all using, because I'm sure there's lots of really great things out there that Bush Heritage could access and learn from. Survey 123 helps us to gather data out in the field. I'm just talking about conservation-specific on-ground project data in this example. And then we've got the portal where the information is stored. The measures go back into Miradi. So Miradi defines what we need and what we want to do. And then those measures of once we go out and do the monitoring, we feed that back up into the plans and update them. Now I'm just going to go into doing a bit of a demo. So I'm just going to go into Miradi and show you how we kind of set up our projects and an example of a project. And then I'll just show you how we can, using those classifications that I was talking about, roll that information up into different ways to share amongst ourselves and others about how we're tracking. Now, just got to hopefully this is going to work. Can you see?
Yep, we're in Miradi.
Okay, great.
Good one.
So Bush Heritage has a program in Miradi, and this program is also, of course, supported by our broader conservation management process. So that's a big document that runs through the assess, the plan, the implement, the analyse and adapt, and the share steps. And part of that is developing a plan. So we have all of our reserves, our landscapes. Sorry, it's probably quite small, isn't it? See if I can make that a little bit better. No, not working. Grab your binoculars. And we've got our priority landscape plans in here, and even some of our organisational department kind of plans. So Bridget and I are part of the Science and Conservation team at Bush Heritage, and we have our own Science and Conservation team plan in it too. So that's our strategic plan about how we support the rest of the organisation to assess and plan, implement, adapt, and then share the work that they're doing within their individual projects. I was going to I'm in Edge. So Edgbaston's a reserve that we have in Queensland. It's a special place. One of the special things about it is it has a little redfin blue-eyed fish that only exists in that one place within the springs at Edgbaston. And we've developed a plan in Miradi. I'm just going to look at the weed. Still full screen. So what we do is we've got standard, these, you can see these RCO1, RCO2, they're result chains. So we build the structure and the scaffolding of all of our plans is built around theories of change. We have a theories of change or results chain library. And so we've built the structure, the foundation for all of our strategies, so then we can build a standardised monitoring and evaluation kind of program that sits on these little boxes. I won't go into too much detail because we might be here all day, but hopefully you're familiar with the concept of the theory of change. We use them in lots of different ways. It can be a diagram like this, which is what Bush Heritage uses, or it can be a table. It comes in different ways, so we use conceptual models. So this is a weed strategy. It's got lots of activities. We want to reduce threats, and we care about these things on our reserve. And then each of these boxes have classifications and taxonomies that sit behind that. So we select those classifications. I'll just show you an example for weeds. There's one there, just down there, 218, invasive weeds. That connects all of our systems together. That helps us to read from one project to another. It's just not about just one project, it's a national view that then reads into the spatial system and the finance system, and then we're able to use those taxonomies to then scale up into dashboards and use those for different reporting. So developing our strategies and our activities in Miradi, that automatically is making your work plan as you go, because you're testing your assumptions here about how you think a strategy is going to work. And then we go into the work plan view. There's those activities from that diagram. So that's the results chain is the foundation of all of our plans, whether it's a landscape or a reserve. Those codes link everything together. And then there's our activities. This is the work plan view in Miradi. We've got a strategy here, woody weed management. We've got all of our activities here, and then we're assigning budgets to specific activities. And you can see these codes. There's that 218 that I showed you before. So that's where that key linkage, where we can really start to embed the thinking and the knowledge that we've kind of built into the Edgbaston plan and the priorities, linking that into the different systems. So that's the money, but we also need to and care about who's going to do the work. So again, the woody weed management strategy, your activities, we've got some people assigned here, and then we've got days allocated as well. So it's defining who we need, the resources that are required to deliver on the goals and objectives that we've defined in our projects. So all of this information sits within this one project, but we want to be able to see how we're tracking nationally. So how are we going with weeds on Edgbaston, and then linking in with that code of 218. We'll be able to see how the budget's looking in the finance system, and then tracking the data collection, analysis, and the measures in the spatial system. That also links to the kind of spatially allocating strategy zones or areas. So those key codes are a real building, kind of enable the building blocks to connect together. So I'll just jump into the dashboard. So this is just the same data that we saw in Miradi. Once we've gone through that process of building the work plan, assigning the days, the staff, and the money that goes through the system of being approved nationally, with all the other budgets that need to go into the mix. It goes through that annual budget cycle, and then it starts the new process. So our budget cycle started in April, and we'll be going through a quarterly review process. So every quarter we do a reforecast, and then we do progress reporting against strategies in all of our plans. So in Edgbaston and all the other plans as well. And you see here weeds. That's the budget that was defined in the Miradi work plan view that I just showed you before. And then we're able to track against that budget that's been approved, that what we're spending. So that's part of how we track that we're doing what we said we would within that budget timeline. Now we need to know who's doing the work and being able to assign across and making sure we're not overworking people. You can see here in this first iteration of assigning, if you don't assign a person to a task or an activity, it doesn't get done. So this is really important to be able to identify who is going to implement the strategy or activity, that they've got the time to do that, and then assigning a lead as well is critical. So Dean, we've overstretched Dean at the moment. He's on 321, but we need to go back and then talk to the team and reallocate where that priorities need to go. So it's always about checking in and really embedding that review process throughout the year. And you'll see that we've got 30 days assigned for a volunteer against weeds, and then there's 70 days for staff. So a reserve manager's been assigned 70 days. So that helps to, particularly if we have people that are assigned across multiple projects, we can see where they've been allocated across the portfolio. They might be doing some stuff in the landscape plan or on other reserves, or just things that they need to do to contribute to bush heritage business. As usual, stuff like developing procedures and updating procedures and developing methods and things. Let's go back to this. So I'll move into just some practical lessons, and then I might just open it up to some questions. I think we all know this one, and it's just probably just across the board. So culture's kind of over reign supreme over the actual tools themselves. So we can have the tools, but if nobody's using them, they're not very useful, are they? So a lot of the work that we do is nudging our staff to embed these processes and use these tools in their day-to-day, weekly, monthly work. It's about making their jobs easier. We need to demonstrate that. We're not trying to make things more difficult. So it's a way to, they're only as useful as the team, the practices around those, the Miradi and the actual implementation of the conservation standards. Engaging teams, you need to make it relevant from the start, of course, so engaging them from the get-go. We need to involve people in building the plan. So we have workshops where we engage all the stakeholders that need to be involved in developing the plan, looking at the things we care about, the threats, the developing strategies. It's really important for us, as I said at the start of this, working with our Aboriginal partners and traditional custodians, so building those relationships so we can get to a point where we can work together to build that plan for the particular reserve or landscape. It's important to identify those internal champions or people that embrace the process and the tools, so that they can be the voice for it, and not just having the conservation planning team talking about this stuff, just showing how and demonstrating how it works. And just keeping those early expectations realistic, so not kind of over planning, just planning as much as we can and making sure that we've developed a plan that is able to be implemented. Keeping plans alive, so embedding Miradi into existing schedules. So we have our quarterly reforecasting and quarterly progress reporting against strategies. One of the things we're doing at the moment is trying to embed the culture of using those progress reports on that regular quarterly basis, so that managers and senior leadership are all using the the progress reporting that's in those plans to engage in conversation about how our projects are tracking. Are we working towards the goals? Do we need to change the way that we're doing things? Do we need more money? Do we need less? Do we need more people? That kind of thing. I mentioned before about assigning that clear ownership, a lead to strategies and activities and project management, basic project management principles. Using the monitoring plan actively. We're still working on that. There's some really great things that we're doing, but we're still trying to develop for some of the monitoring that we're doing, still looking at the best methods and indicators that we can use to measure the things that we care about. And making sure that the tools and the system is accessible to people as well. So that's really important as well. Of course, the whole point of the conservation standards and using Miradi as an adaptive management tool is we want to be adaptive. So we schedule. It's really important to continue to train people, embed that structured learning into the organisation. Kind of clear and induction processes for new staff, ongoing training, making sure they've got access to the tools and equipment that they need. Documenting those assumptions explicitly. So that's why it's really important for us to be using those theories of change to help to kind of build those the strategies and activities, and documenting the assumptions that we're making about how we're going to achieve the things that we want to achieve. Trying to normalise updating the plan. So when we say the plan review, that people don't roll their eyeballs and say, oh God, really, another plan review? It should just be part of quarterly business planning, and people should be excited about getting in and updating their plan, particularly when they've learnt something new, we need to change something. It should be just part of what you do as a conservation staffer. And don't get too crazy with the indicators. So we've kind of built a relatively doable, start off with a doable monitoring plan. And then as we learn more and more about the places that we work, we add additional indicators to that where we see fit that we're not measuring the things that are going to tell ourselves and the project and also the rest of the organisation how we're going. What am I doing now? Oh, there's a few resources out there. There's a whole CMP workspace on conservation standards adoption. That goes into the real nitty-gritty. I've just kind of given you a brief overview of just some of those developing plans and then how you can really structure that work plan, make sure that you've got the right resources, and how you can view that within a project. And then there's the conservation standard adoption theory of change that's available in the Conservation Actions Measure library in Miradi. I just wanted to go back to the dashboard just for a minute. I might just end on this. No, that's what I want to. Just because I'm just looking at a project here, but we can look at the landscape. So Edge Basin sits within doesn't want to work. But you can search across, because what we want to do is we want to scale from project-based to why have I suddenly just forgotten what oh, I can't see it there. Oh, that's weird. But what we can do is roll up from the project to the whole organisation. So one of the things we do is when we're looking at we've got project level monitoring, and then we have our national level monitoring. So you can roll up the things we care about, so the targets, you can roll that up across all of the reserves. And then that's one of the things we can do. Again, it's that really key piece is those codes. So we can see across the whole portfolio how we're going with the health of our targets, and then how we're going with managing our threat. So again, pulling those codes across that we've assigned to all the different targets, the things we care about, we've assigned them all to different threats across all the portfolio, and then you can pull that up and see across the whole organisation how we're tracking. It just gives you some really great ways of visualising different things and sharing that information to different audiences. Something that's kind of emerging for us, we're still working on it, but we have the IUCN ecosystem typology, which is relatively new, came out last year. We're assigning those to all of our targets, so then we'll be able to see how we're going, say for example with rivers and streams across all of our reserves, how we're doing with water generally, and once we've assigned these taxonomies, we'll be able to see how we're tracking against those ecosystem typology types. So linking in not just for bush heritage, but also for those broader 30 by 30 targets as well. What time have I got here? Okay, so I'll just stop sharing. And if anybody's got any questions.
Yeah, I got a question. I just dive in. Sorry, I should have put my hand up.
Oh,
Go for it, Catherine.
Hi, Harjin. Thanks for hosting this. Kia ora koutou. Oops, happened to be wearing a Panda t-shirt. 17 years in WWF and long-standing familiarity with these conservation standards. So awesome to see how they're progressing and being used. Thanks for opening the presentation across the ditch. We need more of this here in New Zealand. What I was wondering, Claire and colleagues, is how the agencies are finding this. We're in the depths of funding proposals at the moment, and is Miradi and the facilities it's having making fundraising easier, or are the institutions becoming more accepting of it in and of itself, rather than having to go through their painful portals and all that kind of stuff? Is that institutional evolution beginning yet, as these systems get more rigorous and professional?
Good question. I think well, I wish our fundraising experts were here, but look, even just about, it was probably about 10 years ago that, I can't remember who it was, but there was a key funder that we were looking at, and they were going to give us quite a bit of money, but they were asking for theories of change. So it was, and thankfully we had them. So, I think over time, people are starting to see these tools being used across, globally and across, and used by different conservation organisations. So they know that they exist. They know people are kind of, starting to embed some of these things into the way that they do things. So asking those bigger questions about not just, how many hectares of weeds did you pull out last week, but what did that actually mean for the health of the ecosystems and the species that you're managing for. So I think it's is that kind of what you're talking about? It's like, yeah, people are asking.
Yes and no. I mean, it obviously makes it a lot easier in demonstrating conservation planning and in a rigorous manner. I mean more about not double entering, so that you don't have to take this material out of Miradi or the resourcing you've got there and then put it into their system. It's like, does their system yet trust, oh, you've got that, okay, let's just log into that and get all the detail that we need.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think a good example of that is the Special Wildlife Reserve process in Queensland. So we've now got Special Wildlife Reserve protection on a number of our reserves in Queensland. It's relatively new. I think there was a announcement that came out in the last couple of days for one of our reserves in Queensland, Palunga. We worked with them because it was a new process, and they gave us a template, which was a management plan. we worked with them to nudge that plan a bit more towards not 100%, but they were really open to working with us to nudge the plan to be more, it wasn't just about filling out their template, but being closer to the way that we used our planning processes and set up our goals and measures and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think we've got some good wins there, but there's still a bit of work to do.
Thank you.
Beth, you've got your hand up as well.
I do. Thank you. Kia ora, everyone. I'm Beth Endress. I work for Department of Conservation in New Zealand. And I've used conservation standards with Kotahitanga Motetao, an alliance across the top of the South. We initially started using Miradi as they were going through the planning process, and they were thinking to use that for monitoring progress. However, I was the person that kind of volunteered to get them set up and to kind of get things, the bones into Miradi. But we found it really difficult to find someone else to then pick it up and maintain it. And I guess, Claire, I was asking, my question is, did you find it similar? I mean, I guess there are people that engage in this sort of thing, no matter what software it is, and people that don't. And so do you have any tips on identifying the right people to maintain things going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we're still grappling with that conundrum, even though we've been using the tool for a really long time. And I think Bridget, pipe in if you've got something to add, because Bridget works. That's one of the ways that we can do this is by having amazing staff like Bridget helping to bring people in and helping with training and working with people to set up their projects, help to adapt them and basically use them. But I mean, some people are just never going to use it. So we have to find that the champion that's going to do it for them, or like someone that becomes that, that coordinating person that will be the Miradi user for the team. And there's no point trying to force that. They just may not have the capability. They're an on-ground, hands-on person and they're not excited about computers. So yeah, look, we've got to try lots of different strategies and just do the best that you can. Yeah, but hopefully if you just keep nudging away and they'll come on board. Yeah.
I'll just jump in and say 100% agree with that, Claire. I mean, we're lucky now to have a small team within Bush Heritage that's essentially a support team out to the rest of the organisation. But that's now as the organisation's grown. Previously, the team was not so big. So yeah, it's looking for those key points, those key managers, key other people who do get excited about it and see the benefit and are wanting to learn, who can champion it. And then the other thing I think that really helps is having, adapting it to be fit for purpose for the organisation. So having that really clear demonstration of sort of why, like what's the benefits, and being able to demonstrate that early so you can show, hopefully it's less work and not more. But yeah, I guess that's all change management as well a little bit. I was going to put in the chat as well, there's some resources that are being developed through the Conservation Measures Partnership. If there's some useful resources in there, I'll put it in the chat.
Sorry, I didn't work out. I'll get my hand up. But I was just wondering how the spatial integration with Miradi and Miradi Share has been progressing. So yeah, like map priority weeds for map priority areas for weed treatment and that kind of thing. It strikes me that if using that ArcGIS 1, 2, 3, then in some ways, if people on the ground are willing to use that and like map areas that are treating everything, then that data could just be fed back into the plan. So with that, seems like that integration might make it a little bit easier for people that don't like being at computers or in the office. I guess you still need someone to bring it all together, I know, but the spatial integration would be nice.
Yeah, hey Paul, how you going? I haven't seen you for ages. Yeah, look, I think we've got field maps and Servo 123, so we're out there in the field using it in various ways. At the moment, we're developing standard methods. So hopefully once we've kind of nailed those, that will further help with that. But we've certainly got a very integrated spatial portal that is getting better and better all the time. We've been developing it. We've always had obviously a spatial system, but we've been developing it quite explicitly to spatially represent the strategies and the indicators in those strategy zones and threat mapping and target mapping for a while now. And so yeah, I think it's and again it's those codes. Those codes are linking things together. So you're talking about the magical world, which when I'm imagining like in a couple of years' time, we plan for the, we assess and we plan in Miradi, we go out and we're implementing, data is gathered, it goes through analysis, it's spatially represented, and then measures come back into Miradi in the right place to then show how we're tracking trends, we're tracking towards our goals and objectives, and it all just happens automatically. That's the magical world.
Can you display maps in Miradi Share now? On Miradi,
that's very simple mapping functionality. It's probably not that different than, I don't know, the last time that you played in there. You can do very broad polygons. It's quite useful just for planning conversations. We haven't used it as much as we would have liked because we do have this well-developed spatial system. But yeah, it's not Miradi. It's not the spatial system. It's the kind of, it's where you're defining your intent.
Just add to that as well. I mean, it's something we're sort of exploring a little bit as well, Paul, as an organisation. But I think, Miradi provides that structure, right, of the conservation plans. So then, the benefit is then being able to link that to other systems, whether you have a fully developed, GIS enterprise or something else. But at least, having things contextualised. So, yeah, we're in the process, as Claire said, sort of building an interface that pulls in, the structure and classifications from Miradi, as well as some of that spatial data or other data, so then it can be exposed and visualised and used, but within a structured way that comes back to targets or focal values and threats and so on. So it's, yeah. But getting there, that's the magical world, is having that all working.
Yeah, I always like the idea of just being able to have to be able to click on a target and see a map of it come up. Like it's just an image file or something like that, and then a threat, you can do the same thing, and strategy, you do like black priority areas or something. That would be cool. But I think from last I checked, we're not there yet.
You mean directly in Miradi?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not yet. Yeah.
There's just a couple of questions in the chat, Camille. So when we're not using Miradi at project levels, do you provide people with templates, Excel, etc., that you can centralise into the main Miradi program? Hand that over to you, Claire.
Sorry, what was that question again? Let me just...
When people are not using Miradi at a project level, or they're not engaging with the system, do you provide them with templates, Excel, etc., that you can then centralise into the main system?
Oh, yeah. So the good thing about, and I probably should have mentioned it when I was banging on before, but a key part of putting things into a database is how you get it out. So I've shown you how we can link those pieces of the puzzle into other systems by using classifications. But we can also export reports out of there as well, and we can design and decide which pieces of Miradi we want to pull out into like a word management plan or a fundraising document or fire management plan or that kind of thing. So that provides the template generally for how we can then get information. Then, of course, it's like double handling because we get information into the templates and then we have to put it back into Miradi. But Miradi can't do everything. So where it can't do those things, we have other tools and templates and, Excel's, not a lot, but to make sure that we've got the right information for the entire project. So they're not always like standard templates depending on who might be needing to use Miradi. We're still developing plans for different programs at Bush Heritage that are beyond the place-based management. So kind of, I was mentioned before about our science and conservation team have a plan in Miradi. That wasn't based on a template. That was just kind of based on the national strategy, and we designed it within our team. But so there's still a bit of free forming, because that then helps to then improve the way we do things. But definitely we do have, that was a very long answer to saying, yes, we do have templates, but not 100%.
It's clear. Hopefully that helped. We've got just a couple of minutes left. Just checking, has anyone else got any other questions? And recognising, you know, you can reach out to Claire, myself, anyone else within the committee at any time, and we're happy to do our best to help. I think that's the beauty of having the network. Any other questions? Pause for a moment.
If nobody has a question,
hands coming up.
if nobody has a question, I'm actually quite intrigued, Claire. I'm a Miradi. The Miradi gets me excited, having, you know, all these pretty pictures, and you know, I know that you guys have the kind of support wrapped around, you know, exporting things into pretty graphs and infographics and stuff like that. But Claire, you did allude to this briefly, but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you use Miradi for, you know, measuring impact, like in reporting against those goals and indicators.
So with going through the CMP, the conservation standards process, so we'll use those fields in Miradi to define I mean, we go through that whole health, to, you know, deciding what the health of the target is and what we're going to measure for that based on standard bush heritage indicators, if we have them, and there may be site-specific indicators for particular species, or, you know, specific site things. Defining goals. Now, we still have plans that we don't have goals that we're super happy with. So, you know, there's always this kind of reviewing and updating and kind of thinking about, are we getting too kind of broad with what we're saying we're trying to achieve in these complex systems that we're dealing with so many threats. That's all defined in Miradi, and then it's pulling that out into monitoring plans that then people take out into the field and implement. Is that what you're kind of saying? And then we'll use, again, classifications based, like we've set a baseline for where we think the target is, those key indicators, it's very hard sometimes to get viability ratings, like where are you now to where you want to be, particularly if there's not already existing benchmarks within a state. But look, we're doing the best we can with the knowledge we have, and there's still a lot of to be determined, but that's just getting better knowledge of the properties that we own. It takes time to kind of get an understanding of what we're dealing with. Often, you know, when you acquire a property and then you kind of got to be out there and yeah, interrogating it to get a sense of what we're really dealing with. So it is that, as best we can, we're defining what we need to measure in Miradi. It's being measured, it's going into the spatial system, it's being analysed. Bridget supports an evaluation, a detailed evaluation process. And then the ecologists and the project team analyse the data, give us what they think we're at now, and then we put it back into the system. So we're really using Miradi to its kind of, you know, we don't use every field. There's lots of fields in Miradi. We don't use all of them, but we're really pushing that monitoring program to its limit. So if you ever want to catch up and talk about it, let me know.
Embedding as well those annual and sort of 5-year review processes as well, I think, to make sure the actual data and summary measures are going back into the system, obviously, so you can report outcomes and impact. Thanks. We've just got a couple more minutes. Jamie, thanks for putting that in the chat as well. Can follow up on that one. Just say as well on the Earth Ranger and SMART initiative that the Conservation Measures Partnership is in the process of partnering with Earth Ranger. So I think there'll hopefully be some progressions there in terms of expanding and rolling that out, which would be really good. Anything else, Claire, you wanted to add? Otherwise, we might wrap up and we'll finish on time. It's been some really good questions, and thank you, Claire. It's excellent.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks everyone for coming. And like I said before, please get in touch if you've got some ideas, if you think that we could do things better from what I've told you today, or if you want to share. And yeah, look, I'd really love to talk to the committee about a future webinar around the tools and that people are using to help them with implementation and analysis of monitoring data. That'd be awesome. Yeah, Earth Ranger, really, really keen to learn more about that. There's been some really good conversations with the Miradi developers and the smart people to integrate a lot of that stuff.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Claire. Hopefully that was useful for everybody. Took a few nuggets away from that. So we'll wrap up now. I'm just going to hand back over to Hajin to close out the meeting. And again, please feel free to email, get in touch with anyone on the committee, otherwise with Claire directly if you've got any questions. I'll pass it to you, Hajin.
Thank you, Bridget, and thank you again, everybody, for your time today and joining us and learning about the how to operationalize the conservation standards. And so I will just close the session with karakia as well, and please join in where you are if you know this one. He karakia whakakapi. Kia whakairia te tapu, kia wātia ai te ara, kia turuki whakataha ai, kia turuki whakataha ai, haumie hui taiki. And have a very good afternoon, everybody, and hope to see you in our next webinar.